Hello and welcome back to my channel. This is a channel dedicated to not only lifestyle content, fitness content, and overall just showing myself as a authentic person. I get pretty vulnerable on this channel from time to time. This is going to be one of those videos. This is actually going to be a sit down video. And fair warning, there are some trigger warnings that I have to give you all because maybe you're not in the mindset to hear these things, which is a-okay. This video does not have to be for everyone. What I would like this video to accomplish is to inspire other people to continue living their best lives and continue showing up for themselves despite what they've been through. And I do that by breaking down my background, where I've come from. But my mindset is if my vulnerability helps someone else get through their pain that they're going through, or helps them want to achieve more in their life, then why not tell my story? And it's my story, and I want to use it to inspire other people, and especially inspire those people who may have kind of the same type of stories as me, because ultimately my suffering was not unique. What I went through was not unique. What matters truly is what I've done with all of that pain that I've been through in my life. Now, this video I've titled No One Cares, because ultimately it comes down to no one caring, okay? We've all been through something, we've all experienced something, but I broke it down into 3 different segments. Now I will be calling out each segment as they come about, and again, trigger warning, lots of this will be me connecting lessons that I've learned to my own life. I will start off by basically telling you all my story, which is where huge trigger warnings come into play. So again, if you're not in the mindset, then this is not the video for you at this time, which is a-okay. I hope you choose to stick around and watch some of my other content, because I do believe I have really good fitness content and lifestyle content, and just showing you all how I continue to show up for myself despite everything I've been through in life. And I also want to say that this video is not meant to bring about sympathy. I do not need sympathy. I actually would rather you never show me sympathy when I tell you my story, because I never tell you it to get sympathy, like, oh, poor girl. That's not the case whatsoever. I tell my story to inspire people, if not inspire them, to tell them that this is real. Walk away with this with sort of a inspiring story, if not walk away from this with awareness. So sympathy for someone like me and my situation is not what I'm looking for whatsoever, because I truly believe like I've honestly made it out the gutter, if that makes sense. But I am absolutely in a better place. But like I said at the very beginning, I do want to use my story to help inspire people to show up for themselves, because I do believe that we all deserve to go after what we want in this life, despite what we've been through. So the 3 different segments are, so number 1, your pain is not unique. Number 2, choosing victimhood. Number 3, taking back your power. Okay, it took me a minute to actually sit down and film this video, because I wanted to do it right, and I wanted to make sure it wasn't something that I was going to rush through, because it is a heavy topic. And this is a video that will explain why I even created this channel, because I needed to practice showing up more authentically for myself. And so that also went in hand with why I created this channel. But also I do have a story, okay? And I have a rather inspiring story, I would like to think. And this is my step of taking that story and hopefully inspiring others, whether you yourself were in the foster care system, whether you grew up with a adverse childhood like myself, whatever it may be. I just hope this inspires you. If not, just brings awareness to you that these things actually go on. So we're going to talk about segment 1. Okay, this is where we get down into some of my childhood, my upbringing. I won't get too sappy with it, but I will give as much detail as I feel is appropriate to get across the message of this video. So I was born in 1997 in Chicago, Illinois, to a woman. I never, unfortunately, got the opportunity to meet my biological father. And so down the line around 2 or 3, I fell out of a 2-story building, and I unfortunately had brain surgery. I do have a forever scar at the back of my head, and I bring this up because that is the very first first indication that there was lots of child neglect at the moment. Around this time, my biological mother would have met a man and started dating this man. This man was a couple years older than her, probably in his late 30s at the time. And at that time, trigger warning, around the time where I was completely disabled because I had to go through speech therapy at that time also, because my speech upbringing after the incident was not good whatsoever. But around that time, he started to abuse me, if you can get what I'm putting down, unfortunately. And I grew up thinking that was normal because, again, this started around age 3. And later on, probably around 6 or 7, is when I would realize that she knew that this was going on. And whatever problems that she was going through, this is not her story. This is me telling my story. I went through that. I went through multiple unfortunate occasions of that trauma. And I just remember, like in kindergarten, just constantly getting in trouble because I was talking about inappropriate things, because I myself was being exposed to these things at home. Age 3, around 11 or 12, those were the years where I was being abused. And my biological mother knew. She never stopped it. She never did anything. They used to constantly argue, and I remember it was just a constant thing. When they would drink together, they would get into arguments. He would beat her. She would attempt to hit him. I would try to stop it. And there was other kids in the home also, but we'll get to that in a moment. But I would try to stop it, and that's when a moment when I was younger, when I knew that she knew, she would bring it up and say, he hurt you, referencing to what he was doing behind closed doors to me as a baby. And I continued on through life. I, at the time, didn't know what to do about it besides cry. I did on multiple occasions, of course. Try to run away from it, try to hide from it, try to do all of these things, but I was scared. I was a scared little girl. I was told to keep it hush hush and not to tell anyone. So at age 7 was around the time when I had my first suicidal attempt, and obviously it was unsuccessful. And from there down the line, I would have experienced more suicidal attempts, probably about 5 or 6 attempts at that time. Also, another part of the story is me growing up extremely poor. So we would constantly move around. We finally landed in Arizona when I was around that time, 11 or 12. We lived in 2 homeless shelters here. It was me and 5 other kids. And I remember thinking the homeless shelters were like a safe haven for me because there's more eyes. There's less time for me to get hurt. And when I think about that and think about how I truly believe these homeless shelters were safe havens and how we finally got to eat all 3 meals with no problem because, again, we grew up like extremely poor. I was the 3rd oldest kid. The 2 oldest were his biological kids, and I was the 3rd oldest, and then I had younger siblings, and we were just moving, from homeless shelter to one of his friends' houses to finally extremely low income housing. And so I enrolled in a school for homeless children. At that time, the school was called Children's First Academy in Phoenix, Arizona. They no longer exist, unfortunately, but I remember this being like my safe haven, and I was a teacher's pet, which lots of kids who experience great trauma tend to lean into the people who make them feel safe. And at that time, it was my teachers. And I remember I had this really amazing teacher. We'll call her Miss D. So I remember Miss D, she would make me avocado sandwiches. Like, she knew something was going on with me, but she didn't know exactly. And so, like, during recess time, I would always stay in and we'd talk, and it was just like, she was the greatest person I've ever known at that time. I finally told her one day that I was experiencing, something along the lines of not wanting to be here anymore and what I was going through. And that is when I started my journey within the foster care system. And so I went into the foster care system at around age 12 or 13. And I've been through 1 group home because I was in an emergency placement group home, and then 3 foster homes. And then I've been to 4 different different high schools, and I've never had time to make friends with people, really, and hang on to those friendships, to be honest, because of just hopping around constantly. But I say all of this to say that I recently came across this quote on TikTok, which is going to bring me back to the topic of the segment. Your pain is not unique. And I recently heard this on TikTok, actually, from this therapist, and she was saying that. And what this means to me is I could choose to be angry. I could choose to be very angry. I could choose to see myself as not deserving love. I can choose to blame myself for all of those things. And honestly, I have done that in the past. I've done that so much. I would beat myself up constantly. I would blame myself for being the reason why once I left, then he started abusing his kids. I could blame myself because there wasn't enough evidence. How I've heard of these instances of him still out there and harming little kids, I could be angry. I could, and I could think that it's unfair that I myself went through that. But I choose to believe that my pain is not unique, because the truth is there's so many other children out there who have the same type of stories as me. There's so many little girls out there who went through the same thing as me. There's so many stories like me, because my pain is not unique. And I choose to honestly own that, because the moment that I say that my pain is unique is the moment that I choose to assert that pain to my identity, which I don't want to do. I don't want to do, because I know that I would fail myself as a person who wants to continue moving and who wants to be a better person. So again, your pain's not unique, my pain is not unique. There's a part of us who naturally want to settle into this moment of being the victim of our story over and over and over and over. But at one point or another, we're gonna have to break apart from that and try to move forward from that victimhood, from that pain, from that suffering. And what that looks like for everyone is very different. Unfortunately, some of us do not have resources to even have the option to move away from that pain, which honestly breaks my heart. So honestly, it is a privilege to have the ability to recognize that my pain is not unique, and I do not take it for granted. And I truly do sit down at the end of the day and thank my lucky stars, thank the universe that I do have the resources to continue to move on and try to be a better person and try to be in a better place. But again, your pain is not unique. My pain is not unique. Yes, it's my own story, but it's comforting to know that there's someone else who went through some great sort of pain. It doesn't have to be the same as mine, obviously, but someone else went through pain, okay? And if they made it out, I myself can make it out. And that is what I want my story to be for others also. So your pain is not unique. Number 2 is choosing victimhood. And it's something that we have to step away from, especially if we want to grow from our pain and from our suffering. And I know this is something that had to freaking click in my head and consistently needs to click in my freaking head, because my body sometimes reverts back to sadness and being depressed, which unfortunately after years of trauma, I do suffer from severe depression, and sometimes it's harder to work through than other times, but I'm here and I'm grateful that I am here. And you also should be grateful that you're also here. But choosing victimhood, okay? Like I said, I could be sad all the time. Depression is always going to be there. If you've been in therapy, you know this. You don't get rid of depression, you just get easier at managing it. But choosing victimhood is when we're settled and we're content on being sad and choosing to relive those moments constantly and live in fear constantly, even though you're not in that environment. And at times where I find myself in these situations is sometimes I'll sit in my apartment that I fully paid for by myself. I'm driving my car that I fully paid for by myself because I went to college, because I've accomplished all of these great things. And I find myself sad, and I find myself scared, and I find myself just terrified when my immediate environment doesn't call for any of that. That is what I mean in moments of choosing victimhood. That doesn't go away. Being a victim or a survivor never goes away. You just get better at dealing with it. Unfortunately, I was a victim of this man. Unfortunately, no one saved me. Unfortunately, I had to go through the things that I went through, and I'm using my story, fortunately, to tell other people that this is something that goes on. But hey, I made it out. If you're in some sort of situation also, you can too. But victimhood is something that I believe the body finds comfort in. For some reason, we cling on to sadness. We cling on to being the version of ourselves that we were used to using for so long, as it was a need for survival. And I can tell you right now, Jay, who was living through survival, is not the Jay right now. And I am super thankful for that. And that just shows that I've grown so much apart of that version of myself. And I am truly in a better place. Absolutely. And to think and look around and see that I built this life for myself is honestly just really, it's rewarding, you know? It's nice to know that I have a story, you know? And that trauma never defined my story. At moments, yes, unfortunately, because I deal with depression, I get sad, I cry, whatever it may be. But to know that I've created a routine to where I can constantly break out of that victimhood to achieve what I want the next day is comforting. And so choosing victimhood is never something we want to do when we want to be better. And unfortunately, this is strongly linked to resources that you have within your capacity. I am super grateful for the situation that I ended up in. I was adopted when I was 17, barely being adopted because at 18 you age out of the system. I was adopted by a family who they value things like mental health, and they're truly good people. But after that, I was consistently exposed to great, honest people who have helped my journey along the way. And I truly would not be the woman I am today without all of those people. None of these people are my blood family. Okay, none of these people are my blood family, but they chose to show up for me. They chose to be in my life, and I am forever grateful for all of that. But yeah, resources. So I was very fortunate to be exposed to college, to be exposed to great people in my life, to be adopted when I was 17 by a good family, because there are situations where kids go into these foster homes and they're adopted by a not so great family, or maybe a family that's just unfit to actually provide housing for a foster kid at the time. But yeah, that's what I mean by it truly is a privilege to be able to have the ability to break away from that trauma. I do, and I don't take it for granted whatsoever. So I've been very fortunate to not choose victimhood and continue to live my life and continue to try to achieve better and want better for myself. Wow, I got through all of that without crying. I do have another segment coming up. Yeah, it's just nice when you can like talk things out and talk things through. It truly is. Now, the last segment is taking back your control. When I was in college, when I went to college at 18, I turned to the gym because I didn't believe in therapy. I didn't believe anything was wrong with me despite everything I went through. Yeah, but nothing's wrong with you whatsoever. Nothing was wrong with me. I just decided to go to the gym versus therapy. So I turned my pain at that time into strength, and at that moment I needed some sort of physical representation of what strength meant to me. So there's instances where I was younger where I would constantly be physically forced to do things, and I would constantly get physically beaten by not only him but my biological mother. And my little fragile skinny girl that I could not do anything, and I blamed myself a lot for everything that happened, and also for things that happened to other people within the household. I blamed myself so much all through college. I did not know how to talk about it. I did not know how to be besides go to the gym 2 times a day and ignore my feelings and try to be everyone's friend, because I was scared of being lonely and I was scared of being left alone with my thoughts. But I also chose to continue moving forward. I also chose to take advantage of the resources that were in front of me, such as joining multiple different groups within the college, getting good grades, leaning into those different mentorships that I was afforded. And I really leaned into the experience, the full-on college experience. And that was my first sign that I can do so much more. I can do so much. I can actually be someone. I don't have to let the trauma get the best of me. And this is why I will always be an advocate for college. I know college, there's like this huge discussion that says college doesn't matter, college doesn't matter. If you're a little kid from the freaking hood, okay, and you weren't directly exposed to doctors, to nurses, you need to go to college. Especially if you lack discipline, you should be going to college. Yes, I was adopted by a good family when I was 17, but when you think about it, I was in their household when I was probably like the end of being 15 to about 17. I was getting like, they were really pushing me to go to college, fill out all the scholarships, thankfully. I never really got to know who I myself till this day, because my timeline was just like at 15, I was in this third and fourth placement, okay, and I was still trying to get to know myself, did not get to know myself. I was scared, I was terrified. I wasn't working through any trauma. I knew for sure that my parents who adopted me gave me structure where they wanted me to achieve all these great things, which I was trying to catch up with my GPA, because I was going from an environment of living in survival to going through or being in an environment where you're provided structure and you're provided opportunity to actually get good grades. Then that need for survival was kind of still ingrained in my brain. And so just trying to break those habits, I was very fortunate, like I said, to go to college and experience all these great things. Leaning into the experience was something at that time. And at that time, I didn't see it as taking back my control, but kind of just living life. But when you look at the statistics of kids who experience the foster care system and kids who have went through great trauma as a child, and how many are more likely to end up as drug addicts, for example, end up homeless, like I beat the statistic, and I'm pretty proud of that. And that all comes back to taking back my power. And taking back my power by truly moving forward has truly done amazing things for me in my life. But back to my point, if you're a poor kid who grew up in the freaking hood, who did not grow up around nurses, doctors, but you know that you want better for yourself, look into college, look into what resources. Although I'm gonna be honest, I don't know if there's gonna be much resources left for poor kids. I don't, but I truly hope there will be always. College was definitely the first point where I was like, wow, I could be a lawyer, I could be a doctor, I could be so many different things. College was so important for me, and I truly needed that. And I will always be thankful for the people who helped make it happen for me and the people who mentored me through it all, because it has done, like I said, amazing things for me. But that is how taking back my power has looked for me. And even now, in moments where I don't feel like doing something in my life, I find myself taking back the power in my life by, for example, instead of feeling depressed, going to the gym or going for a walk, getting out of that mindset where I want to cling on to those things that are so familiar to me, want to cling on to those survival moments that were so familiar to me at a time, because I no longer want to be that person, and I don't want to be my trauma. I want to be greater than my trauma. And sometimes, unfortunately, I think about the moments where I was truly sad. I think about the moments where even after I was no longer in that situation and I may have felt like questioned my life and why I was here, I think about those moments. And I remember, if not anything, I need to continue to live despite. Okay, that man is probably still out there, wandering the streets, doing whatever. You know what? I choose to live despite all of that. I choose to be the better person. I choose to show up at the end of my story to be the greatest version of myself. I have so many amazing people that I know of, and I just know that the impact that they've had on my life, I hope I can leave that impact on their lives also. And so to do that, I need to continue to live despite. I need to continue moving forward, whatever that may look like for me. I need to continue, and I am a strong person, and I have been dealt quite a lot in life, a lot of crappy things, but I live despite. And like I said, taking back my power is such a great thing that I'm glad I was able to do. And it all started with recognizing that my pain is not unique and continuously running away from my brain constantly wanting to choose victimhood. So I'm gonna end the video right here. I truly hope this video was inspiring for you. I hope that you can use my story to feel your own story, or just to bring about awareness to you that this is something that goes on. And I could sit here and tell you the many moments, like the moment that my biological mother gave me $5 to not tell anyone. The next day at school, I could give you many moments. I can tell you how I got lost in the foster care system because I entered into the foster care system 2 times because they were not keeping track of me. I can sit here and tell you so many stories. I can tell you so many things that has happened, unfortunately, to me as a little girl. But what is that going to do for you? So this is the part where I want you to take my story and I want you to feel inspired. What it is that you're going through, you will make it out on the better end. However you choose to show up for yourself, I'm so proud of you for even showing up for yourself. And take my story, be inspired, take my story. Be aware that these things go on. Just know that it's not the trauma who made me who I am. Yes, it's unfortunately going to be a part of me, but it's what I did with that trauma. And this life that I'm living is truly what I've done with that trauma. All right. Thank you for watching. Thank you for tuning in. I'll see you in the next video. I'm sure it will be so much lighthearted than this, but I truly hope this video was inspiring for you. This is so important for me to film and to film the correct way. But yeah, thank you. I hope you have a good day.